Hey there, my name is Rachael.
I'm Annie.
And I'm Shelby. And welcome to the Magdala podcast.
We know from experience that pornography, masturbation, and other sexual addictions are not just a guy problem.
The need for women to be accompanied in their journey toward healing from addiction has gone sorely unmet, and that's why we're here.
Magdala is a space where women can find hope, healing, and freedom from sexual addiction through support, community, and accountability.
Here on the podcast, you'll find everything from testimonies to practical advice to discussions on how to live fully as a Catholic woman.
You are not alone, and wherever you are on your journey, we welcome you to this table.
Welcome back, everyone, to the Magdala podcast. Today, we are continuing our series on identity, so the relational identities of women. And today, we're going to talk about the identity of mother. And I'm really excited to have Sister Chiara on today to talk about motherhood. Sister, I would love for you to just introduce yourself to our audience. And I think you've been at moderator formation things before, or you've done things with us before, but I don't think you've been on the podcast before. So I would love for our listeners to get to know you a bit.
Thank you. My name is Sister Chiara. I'm a part of a community called the Disciples of the Lord Jesus Christ. Our community is in the Diocese of Amarillo, Texas, but we have a few other locations, one in Pittsburgh, which is how I got to know Annie and the connection with Magdala, and really am very edified and grateful that there's a ministry out there like this. So thank you for all you do, and thank you for inviting me to be a part of this.
No problem. I'm super grateful to have you. And what could you describe a bit about like the charism and maybe some of the mission that you're on in your order? I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, our community, we were founded in 1972, so very shortly after the Second Vatican Council. So the call of the new evangelization that the church has for us, I think that's why the Holy Spirit raised us up. That's our charism, is evangelization. But we're really a pretty contemplative community, even though our apostolates are out there and active. We have a very contemplative side. So we have at least 2 hours of personal prayer just worked into our schedule every day. Altogether, most of our day is comprised of prayer. And from the fruit of that, that's what we share with the world.
That's amazing. I would love to hear more about that, just kind of as our conversation progresses too, of just your life of prayer, how that affects your spiritual motherhood. I mean, as an aside, like as a young mom, I think one of the first things that is easy to let slip is a prayer life. And because I have 2 toddlers, like we were talking about earlier. And I've just found like I cannot mother well if I don't have a steady prayer life. So obviously, I can't commit to 2 hours. That's not my calling, but I would love to just talk about, at some point in our conversation, just motherhood being rooted in prayer wherever you are mothering. But that's just beautiful to hear about the contemplative aspect of your community. I think just to start, I know one of the questions that I had thought we could begin with, and I love that you kind of offered a correction on this. I said, how are women called to be mothers, or all women called to be mothers? And you said, I wouldn't say it that way. I would say all women just are mothers. So talk about that, how all women are mothers. And that's why we're talking about this today.
Yeah, I don't know if I gave it too much thought, except that the way it was phrased, I was really kind of stuck. Like I was like, I don't know how we're called. One of the things that I heard about our community when we were being founded is that we were a very Franciscan community, but we actually didn't know it. It's just something that everybody else knew. And it's just kind of who we found ourselves being. And I think that's very similar with women and motherhood. Like you don't have to tell the little 2-year-old or 3-year-old girl like to take care of her dolls. They just find themselves doing it. It's something that's inside of them, and it's a really beautiful thing. But the reason why I guess I couldn't hear it as a call is because I feel like maybe it wouldn't be authentic or natural if we felt like we had to like check some boxes on what motherhood is, but much more authentic and beautifully unique how God created us to be mothers in our own way. and our own gifts and capacities, and then later on discovering, oh, I guess that's motherhood. I guess this is how I love to care for souls, or teach them, or nourish them, or protect them. Whatever it is that motherhood is comprised of, I think we just discover as we grow with the Lord and as we grow in love for people, that we want to care for them, and we discover that along the way, how we do it.
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm thinking about my daughter is 3, and as you're saying, like this is natural to them. Earlier on a team meeting, I had to stop the team meeting because I work remote and my kids are in the house, to go and tell her to go back down for nap, because she was trying to put her baby down for nap. She didn't want to go down for nap. She was like, no, I have to put the baby doll down for nap. And it was this whole throwdown over. I was like, no, you need to take a nap. And she's like, no, it's my baby's nap. So she, my daughter loves caring for all the babies. She has many, many babies, and tells me all the time she's excited to be a mom, which is so lovely. But one of my favorite, I think, descriptions of motherhood is St. Edith Stein says that like women's souls are fashioned to be a shelter in which other souls may unfold. And she's talking about spiritual motherhood for the most part, but I like that description, is that we're a shelter in which other souls unfold and come to life. And to me, that's the description of ideally both physical and spiritual motherhood, which can sometimes go together. But I think for me, when I became a mom to my kids, is kind of when I realized, I was like, wait a second, yeah, this has always been a potency, and it's actualizing in a particular way in this space. But then I realized how much I couldn't shut off this part of my heart anymore, maybe in ways that I could before, or ways we're told not to be so sensitive, or we're told not to care so much by the world, or whatever. When I became a mom to my kids, all of that was just hopeless. I was like, I'm the most sensitive person, just especially around like the human experience. But that's deeply enriched my life. It's enriched all of my relationships. It's enriched my work. And I think about that sometimes too. I love how you're saying this, that this isn't a call. This is just kind of inherent to us. But I do think we're told to shut that down in multiple ways, or we're given the message that it's a weakness rather than a strength. I think in the church we're told it's a strength, but the world tells us it can be a weakness. But it's enriched my life in many, many ways. I would love to hear just kind of about your journey of spiritual motherhood and how you've seen that actualize, especially in your religious vocation, and what has that experience been like for you?
I think spiritual motherhood was one of the first marks of my vocation, where I realized what God was calling me to. And it happened when I was about, 8 or 10, somewhere in there. I remember hearing that song, Here I Am, Lord. We sing at church a lot. And there was a line in there that says, I will hold your people in my heart. And I remember even as a little girl, that song would make me cry. And I just thought it made everybody cry. But when I heard it, it was deeper than that. Like there was like a knowing that there was something about who God made me to be and what he was calling me to were in those lines. I was like, oh, I will hold your people in my heart. And I just knew that in particular, in my vocation as an 8-year-old at the time, I knew that meant like maybe the people that the other kids would make fun of or not play with, or the ones who were forgotten or just ignored or made fun of. Like I felt like those are the ones that I'm going to hold in my heart. Like those are the ones who might not know about God's love. So I can hold them in my heart and give them God's love until they know that he loves them. And I don't know if I would have been able to articulate it, but there was this intuition in me and this conviction. And I just kind of knew that's what I was made for. Only later, when I was discerning and I started reviewing my life, and I saw that as a sign of my spiritual motherhood that I would come to understand as connected to my vocation later. But Yeah, nothing I could have articulated, but something that was deep inside of me.
Do you still see that kind of manifest now, of like just this specific call to people who are, yeah, particularly hurting or suffering, or maybe like on the margins, which is also a very Franciscan charism, which is lovely. But I think, yeah, do you still feel kind of a particular motherly pull towards that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I think it's broadened, especially since I'm really not in control of my ministry. In a sense, like I've been the vocation directress for the last over 9 years. It's approaching 10 years, and that's what I'm transitioning out of right now. We just had job changes, so I feel like I had really the most amazing group of women that I could be accompanying and loving and walking with, just women who are deeply seeking the Lord and wanting to do His will and wanting to know who He is. So in some ways, no, it's had to broaden, and I ministered to rich, popular, lovely people, and so. But even in that, like I've come to understand, like there's a real deep loneliness and sadness in almost all of us. That it's not just what we would look at externally and say, oh, those are the marginalized, but yeah, there's just also probably just inherent to the human condition is this feeling like, does anybody know me, see me, understand me, love me? So in some way, like yes, and in some way, no.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That makes me actually kind of want to talk about like what's most challenging about motherhood, about living out this part of our identity too, of just like, because I think carrying that ache that people have or encountering them in that, it's a very heavy work at times, I think. And yeah, I'm just curious, like what you would say has been most challenging about living out this part of a woman's identity.
Oh, I feel like I have the most to say about about this. I hope, yeah, I hope we don't run out of time. Okay, I'll just kind of say them and then see which one we need to develop. But one of them, I think especially earlier on, is learning how to listen, to like actually listen to people. And one thing that's helped me in my later years is beginning to read poetry and realizing, like, I used to think that I just couldn't really get poetry. It just all seemed a little beyond me. And then I realized, well, it's because I can't read it like I'm reading an article. Like I have to be slow, and I have to read it over and over and over again. And there are certain life experiences that I need, or else I just won't understand it at all. And so I started to look at the women that I worked with more like poems than newspaper articles, because they would just unfold, as you quoted earlier, Edith Stein. They unfold when trust grows and when they get to know you a little bit more, and they say, "Oh, is this a safe place?" And my first impressions have been so shallow, really, very superficial in some ways. And when I listen to them again, I'm like, you didn't present yourself this way the first time. Like, I didn't know all this. I didn't know all this was inside of you. So to learn how to listen to them, and then also at the same time to learn how to listen to the Lord in our conversations, because really all I know very intimately is my own life experience and my own relationship with the Lord. And I guess the second temptation that comes from not being able to listen well is, well, I'll just tell them how I did it, or I'll form them in my image, or just think that they're going to overcome the same obstacles that I did in the same way, or just these ridiculous presumptions that have never helped. They don't help. And it's really hasn't, I really feel very badly for the times, or now looking back, like I just really didn't reverence who they were and the journey that God has them on.
I feel like that's very resonant with, just the experience of motherhood across the board. Is that I struggle pretty consistently with the idea that my children are not me or are not an extension of me. Especially my daughter, because I have a daughter and a son, and they're very, very little, but my daughter is extremely strong-willed, like very, very determined. It's lovely. And our personalities are quite alike in that way. So it's in those moments of like this clash of wills where I really hit that, like, the reality of she's not me. And sometimes the battle of wills is happening because she's a toddler and melting down, and other times it's happening because I'm trying to force her to be someone she's not, or to have preferences that she doesn't, or and it's just about my own control. It's not about me actually like trying to form a person who's unique. It's about that's about my control and my comfort. And those are I really consistently have those moments pretty often, and it's an impulse in myself that I'm trying to learn about and understand. But just all that to say, that's resonant, I think, with my experience as well.
Yeah, probably everybody's. I as you were talking, I heard my mom in the background saying, "This is your favorite. Why aren't you eating it? This is your favorite." She would always say that. I'm like, this is not my favorite. But it was just like something that she had to say. Well, I mean, we didn't have a lot of money either, so it's not like we had the luxury of a lot of choices. So she had to be creative in getting us to do certain things, I guess. But yeah, I really think everybody must struggle with it. Because, and I think it comes out of our goodness. We really want to help. We really want to help. And I don't know how to help you unless you think like me, unless you react like me or know me. Like, that's not true, but it feels true. But I still think it comes from your goodness.
Yes, I would hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm curious if there are any other challenges that you were thinking of.
Yeah. One of the big ones, actually, I love the story that you told about your little girl putting her baby to bed when it was her nap time, because that is the perfect image for my biggest struggle. And that's like making my children, my goal or my life, or, it's such a temptation. I'm sure in every motherhood, I'm specifically thinking about spiritual motherhood, but I mean that for natural mothers too, that, that's a really big part of your motherhood is spiritual motherhood for your own children. And I've experienced it in myself, and I've seen it in others where their children's relationship with God takes a higher precedence than their own. And it's like it fills their prayer time. It's filled my prayer times, and my occupations, and it's been a real obstacle, I think, in some ways, to my own prayer life. And it's just like your little girl saying, "No, it's her nap time," and I have to make sure that she takes her nap time. And in the same way, like, I have to make sure that they're surrendering. I have to make sure that they're detached, they're trusting, they're all the things that I'm not doing. I'm literally not doing because I'm taking their journey into my own hands and trying to be the God of their life in some way. And the real sad kind of paradox is that that's exactly what I'm teaching them, is how to control someone else's life. Or how to be more concerned with someone else rather than just keeping my own eyes fixed on Jesus. But if I can do that, if I can just let them make their mistakes, or even if they might not even be, who am I to say? Sometimes they are. Sometimes they're clearly mistakes, but I am not God, and to reverence their journey and to trust that God has the whole of their life in His hands. And He's not depending on me ultimately or absolutely to keep things from going wrong or to make things better, but that my motherhood, in some cases, is really much more passive than I make it out to be. And there's a couple of images that the Lord has given me. And I don't mean passivity in a sense where, like, well, I'm not doing anything. God, it's up to you, so I don't even have to think about it or worry about it. But I mean, like, in a way that really accompanies God in His forming of them. And when I was a little girl, my dad's a carpenter, and I was he has 5 girls, so I was like the tomboy, so I was the one always in his shop and working with him. And I remember he would have workers sometimes, but usually not, because he liked to work alone. But he told me that I was the best one at helping him guide the wood through the table saw, better than the men, he said, because it's like 8 feet long. It's 4 by 8, these wood sheets, slabs. And when he's cutting it on one side, he needs somebody else to support the end of it so that it doesn't bend down and bind, so that it gets stuck on the blade, the saw. And so when I would do it, I would just watch him very closely, and I would just put my hands underneath it. I wouldn't hold on to it tightly. I would just put my hands underneath it to support the weight of it, and watch very closely his speed and just kind of go with him. And he said many times his workers would be like, okay, I'm going to take control. I'm going to hold on to it, and I'm going to push it through. And that causes another kind of binding. If you're too fast, it causes it binding this way. If you're too slow, it causes the binding this way. If you don't hold it upright. So there's many ways to mess it up. But the Lord gave me that image years later about this is what I'm asking you to do. Like, I'm doing the work. I'm cutting through to her heart. And I don't need you to do it, but I'm asking for your support. You can support her. You can lift her up, and you can keep your eyes so intently on me that you know exactly what pace to move at. It's not an advantage to her if you try to speed her along a path of holiness when that's not the pace I'm going, and that's not the pace I made her for. Some people are slow bloomers. I'm sitting in the middle of all these China berry trees, like they're the last to bloom every season. But that's how God made them. And it's really a beautiful marvel to just see, like, when something starts to come alive in God's timing, and how we can be a part of that, but we're not making it happen.
The Magdala podcast is sponsored by the Catholic Theology Show, presented by Ave Maria University. The Catholic Theology Show covers themes such as the value of a Catholic higher education, religious liberty, how to pray, the philosophies of St. Thomas Aquinas, and more. Stream episodes on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and learn more by visiting the link below.
Wow. I'm just pondering. There's so much good in that. I think this is part of why prayer came up earlier, and this has been one of obviously a challenge as a mom, but also a challenge socially as a mom, I'll say, is that like you're saying, this, like, the children replacing one's entire personality, one's life, one's time, one's spirituality, and you kind of end up living life through your kids. It's very, very easy to do. Like, I can see it in my own life of, like, areas that I'm tempted towards that. But it very quickly became clear to me of, like, I have to have solitude. Like, I have to maintain a sense of personhood before the Lord, of, like, I am Rachael, and it is me and Jesus, and then, yes, I'm called to pour out over here, but it's easy to just pour out and not sit in front of the Lord and receive. And I think my work has demanded that of me too. But I think we do that, like, as women, like you said. I think it comes from our own goodness, and then I think the cynical part of me is, like, I think we do that also because it's in a way easier. It's easier to just, like, try to grasp, try to take control, and then also just try to live our lives through other people, whoever we're mothering, and not just sit and not just, like, hear what's actually going on or reveal what's going on in our hearts. But I definitely hit I hit a wall pretty early in motherhood of just realizing like I actually can't go on. I can't do this if I don't have that solitude, if I don't have that time. And early postpartum, it was like 15 minutes a day, maybe, of like just sitting with the Lord with my breviary, and that was it. And then working my way up from there to a little more time and a little more quiet and creating structures in my day where I can have that. But without that, like my soul's individual life lived before God, yeah, I'll just disappear into whatever else is going on in front of me. And then I'm not actually serving my children, and I'm not actually serving my work very well either. But your analogy, I'm going to ponder that of assisting your dad. My husband is like kind of a hobby carpenter, I'll say. So I know exactly what you're talking about with the table saw. I was like, yes, I know exactly. But just, yeah, I'm going to pray with that image, I think, of just guiding it along and supporting rather than like, I'm going to do this. And I think those are the anxieties that keep me up at night, or I keep mothers in general up at night, whether it's spiritual or natural, is like just, yeah, are they going to be okay? Like, are they going to be all right? And that is a very good concern to have, but we can become too attached to that concern and too attached to becoming the savior in that concern. And I see that in myself regularly, and am constantly working towards more detachment. But whether from work or my children, or even just in community life and my friends, and the maternal kind of love that you feel sometimes towards your friends, particularly in need. And so I think we can just become too attached to fixing instead of just serving. At least that's my inclination. But
Yeah, you said it was easier, and it is true, because sometimes I feel like I've noticed that the times where I've been more tempted to try to work on other people's holiness is when the times, really, if I'm honest, personally, I feel like maybe I'm despairing of my own holiness, or a certain area where I'm not growing, or not detached, or not trusting. So that's really quite common kind of coping mechanism, which is why I'm becoming convinced more and more that we need to pray for the virtue of hope. That our hope is in God. Like, and what's helped me is having accompanied a few of our sisters in these last couple of years, that in their death. This is a new season in our community, so we're only now really having our sisters pass, and just to see how God, I don't know how to explain it, but it just seems like He's doing all things so hiddenly, and they come to be manifested, in the right time. And this is kind of a silly. No, I don't know what I want to say. I'm thinking of Indiana Jones when he's running underneath like the closing doors, and then he reaches and gets his hat in the last minute. Like, it's a silly image, but it's like we have just enough time. God has just enough time to save us and to purify us, and He's worked into our very being like this detachment that even if we don't choose it, nature has chosen it for us. Like, there's a scripture, I think in Corinthians, it says, my outward being is wasting away, my inward being is being renewed day by day. And so, like, I remember hearing in prayer one time the Lord say to me, as I was praying about my attachments and like, how can I let this go? I'm going before the Lord, this hope or this idea or this relationship, and the Lord says to me as I'm clinging, I love you more than what you love more than me. So when we have our attachments, like, I love them so much, and I'm holding on so tightly to it, because as much as you love that, even though like in a sense you're loving that more than me, I love you more than that. So my grasp on you is actually stronger than your grasp on that thing, and I'm not letting you go. And I've worked into your very being. I have this plan that you can't hold on forever, and your grasp is weakening. And as your grasp is weakening, you have no other choice. You have no other choice than to come to me. And I really have seen that. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it in ministry. And I've seen it in a beautiful way in our sisters who are giving their final surrender, their final fiat to God's providence in their life. We really have no control. And he is so really patient, so very kind and loving, and just he's very impressive to me. It's amazing what I don't think he can do. He's had it under control all along.
What's interesting to me as you're speaking to is we were talking about the challenges, and my next question was like, what's transformational or what's fruitful about motherhood? And I think it's the same question. Kind of what I'm hearing is like, just the like you're saying, just the crucible of hope of like that you cannot mother well, or you can't mother fruitfully without hope and without surrender, like daily surrender. And I'm thinking of that with my kids. I'm also just, Magdala has been such an exercise of spiritual motherhood from the very beginning. Like there's just been times where my heart feels like really torn open by the experience of women seeking healing, and just feeling them in my heart, of like just carrying them. And those times have been, and they've moved me to all sorts of things, like deeper repentance for my own wrongdoing, or sometimes humility of like seeing places where I was seeking to control, or where I thought my idea was best and God's idea was best, and as it always is. But I'm just thinking of, the challenge of motherhood is the weight of it always. And the weight is also what's transformational every time. Just an invitation to lean on the Lord and to give myself over to him. And sometimes that weight is daily. Sometimes it's like, just, if it's another toddler tantrum I'm handling, I'm like, I'm so overstimulated and I can't do this anymore. Or if it's like something with my work, but every time it's, that getting to that place of I can't do this is actually exactly where he wants me to get. And it's been very fruitful. So that was just interesting to me as you were talking. I was like, this is kind of the same thing. But with that in mind, I would love to hear, just kind of as we wind down, I wanted to hear a couple thoughts about how prayer has been at the root of your motherhood, because just the way you're talking about your prayer, it's clear you've lived a very beautifully contemplative life in religious life. But I would love to hear about maybe a bit about that. And then what would you say to women listening in Magdala's community who are seeking healing? What healing do you think motherhood might have for them? Just kind of as we wind down.
Yeah. Well, one of the benefits to my prayer life that motherhood has, I think, directly touched is just coming to know the tender love of God, and discovering within myself like a capacity for love that I wouldn't have been able to know existed except through experiencing it. And like that being a real icon or image for me, that if I can love this much, how much God must love me. Like, it's not even comparable. And so sometimes like that thought of God's tender love for me, which I began contemplating through my relationships as a mother figure, it really touches my heart in such a deep way, when I can just rest in that. Like, though a mother forget her child, like, it's true. Like, there's a chance that I could really fail in love. I don't think I will. I hope I won't. I can't imagine stop loving. I can't imagine. I feel very devoted, but there's never a chance. There's never a chance that he'll stop loving me. And that's one of the characteristics of my own personality or temperament, is that fear. Like, what if they stop loving me? The fear that I'm lovable until I'm not. And over again, God's really used the image of motherhood to show me that he'll never stop loving me. So that's been just my own relationship with him and how it's given me a tiny little image of his tender love for me. That's been the huge benefit, because really that union with God is our entire goal. To know him, to love him, to live in him, that he would share his life with us is the whole goal. And so it's been a beautiful gift to get to know him in this way. What would I tell women who are seeking healing? They're on a journey of healing. I think what I would say is, in some ways, you already possess the goal of your healing. We might think it's going to look some way like my temptations will stop, or my pain or my hurting will stop. But that's not exactly the goal. The goal is that we would be sharing in the very life of God. And through his love for us, through his Holy Spirit poured into our hearts, through baptism, through the sacraments, you already possess what you hope for. You already have what your soul desires the most. That God lives deep within you. You don't have to be any other person. You don't have to be at any level of maturity or holiness. But right now, as you are, who you are, with all your wounds, that God is in the very depths of your heart, loving you just as you are right now. And you can go into the depths of your heart. You can enter there, even now, just as you are, and let him love you. He's not waiting for you to be healed. That's what I would say.
I love it. I love it. I'm thinking of a quote from St. Augustine where he says to want to love God is already to love him, or just that the desire to be close is already to be close, like it signifies closeness. And yeah, I think I had a conversation with a mentor of mine last week where she was saying, she was asking the question, what in your life is about achievement and what's about fruitfulness? And just kind of asking how I'm setting up a goal or my work or my motherhood. Am I seeing it as a place of achievement or as a place of desiring fruitfulness? And that achievement is more about my control and how people are going to perceive me. The end result still comes back to me. And then fruitfulness is more about giving my life away and giving my life to God and seeing what becomes of that. And I'm thinking of that just kind of for the women in our community of, this view of recovery, particularly, it can fall into achievement very quickly of like, I have to get this perfect. I have to stop doing X, Y, Z. I have to be sober for this long. I have to do this. And I think real recovery is about fruitfulness, of the end not coming back to you, of just pouring your life out and seeing what God makes of it. And in the end, that's incredibly fulfilling of yourself. Like you do get something out of it. It's not just like an expiation, but I think that's what I'm thinking of is motherhood. Motherhood is about fruitfulness, not about achievement. And I think the times where I fall short in my motherhood is when I make it about achievement. So that's what I'd say. I'm obviously still pondering that. She asked that question. I was like, oh no, there goes my week. Is like thinking about that. Yeah.
I'm glad you followed up with that, because I feel like my answer was the first part of it and yours is the second part. Like God loving us. But really, you're right. We're not satisfied until we can love God. I get that. I understand. So, and that's what we were made for, that fruitfulness. But I love that you're giving kind of food for thought about what does that mean exactly? Like, what does that look like? It's not achievement. It's not achievement. It's a dying and a rising. Giving your failures, giving your efforts, giving everything to the Lord and trusting that he can make something beautiful of it. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for coming on. I know we're winding down now, but yeah, just so grateful to have you and for your wisdom. I'm truly going to be pondering a lot of what you said for the next while here, but yeah, just thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. God bless you. We'll be keeping your ministry in prayer too.
Thanks for listening. Check out more podcast episodes, blog posts, and how to get involved with Magdala by visiting our website, magdalaministries.org. Your love is meant to change the world. We hope to see you soon.